Next on the Love You More show.
Yeah, I trust you. It was crazy because in that season I was homeless. Like I was literally homeless with my family. Had went through just financial, just didn't have it, man. And I was too ashamed to tell my family, my father, because I wanted to be the man. It was just embarrassing.
God, like where are you?
Yeah.
Like how do you maintain saluting and celebrating a God that sometimes you literally on the inside, if we can be honest, have a strong vendetta against? Like, I know you God right now, but we ain't cool right now.
She was a great mom. You know, I gotta put it out there. We're gonna put it out there. Like she ran away from who I became.
Wow.
You know,
The question becomes, when you go through all of that
Yeah.
and people saying certain things, does James Fortune, maybe not now, but did James Fortune have an anger problem? Hey family, Willie Moe Jr. here, and welcome to another edition of the Love You More show. Excited about the opportunity to hang out with you today. To those of you who are new to the show, I want to welcome you. Kind fake claps. Did you feel that in your sha-na-na? I'm sure you did. First thing I want to do is I want to tell you that this show is designed for people who have been through hurts, habits, hang-ups, breakups, and their journey to overcoming and what that looks like. I understand that many times you are going through so much on the inside, right? You may be going through so much and you put your Christian mask on and you walk in and you wave your hands and you know how to say hallelujah. But at the end of the day, deep on the inside, you're going through things. So this is an opportunity for you to do this. If you're driving, don't do this. But if you are sitting and you're watching, put your right hand in the air. Good. Now go like this right here. Good. Now go, That's your church face. You're not gonna need it today, all right? So family, listen, today we have a really great opportunity for you to hang out with a man who's doing some great things in the gospel music industry. Before I introduce you to who he is, I want to give you an opportunity to subscribe to this channel. Come on, somebody. Come on, subscribe to this channel. There is no way that you're going to continuously look at us, hang out, share it with your friend, baby, and not become a part of the Love You More family. In fact, I've given you a name. You are the lovers out there. Did you see how I did my eyes? Those called light-skinned people eyes right there. You are the lovers, light-skinned people eyes. You see it? Family, so I want you to subscribe. Make sure you share this with at least 10 people because this conversation today, I believe it's going to be extremely transformative. Have you ever gone through public scrutiny? Have you ever thought that everybody knows your business? Have you ever just felt like, Lord, how am I going to get through this and reign victorious? Well, the man that I'm hanging out with today, he's going to show you exactly how to go from people talking about you, saying all type of craziness, to becoming number one again, building a family and winning on purpose. I'll tell you what. This man here is a Stellar Award winner, Dove Award winner. Of course, he is a father, a radio host. And when you see him on stage, I can't even lie to you. I know him personally, and I keep telling him every time, bro, I felt something. Like I really felt something. You know how you know somebody, we joke and we play, and then when they go into the mantle in which the Lord has called them to, you be like, man, I felt something. God is with him. I met him years ago, and I'm excited today to call him brother and friend. The one and only James Fortune is hanging out with us. What's going on, good brother?
man, I am great. I'm wonderful. I'm blessed. First of all, thank you for having me, man.
My
I'm
pleasure.
excited about all that God is doing in your life.
Yeah.
Thank you for this opportunity, man. I'm excited to talk, and let's get into it, man.
Man, first things first, why your beard look better than mine on my show?
It don't.
That's all I'm saying. To my barber, I just want to tell you, we're going to have to take notes. He look a little bit more full in the face.
Nah, shout out to George. Shout out to
Hey.
George, the barber. Now, I'll be looking at your beard like, man, who do your beard? I'm
Hey.
trying to see that, but I appreciate that.
Your beard need an Instagram page. She gonna have @James Fortune beard on Instagram. Don't y'all steal that. Well, listen, James, here's the thing. On the show, like we like to do an icebreaker.
Yeah.
We like to make sure that we do an icebreaker to kind of open up the conversation. And the way that we like to do it is through something that you've become extremely successful through, music.
Yeah.
So this record that I wrote is called Turning Point. And this is a time in my life when I had a child and a baby mama, and as you know, music has its ebbs and its flows.
Yeah.
I had just left being Pretty Willie, and I was used to doing club dates, and for some reason, Jesus and the club just don't go together. Right. The Christian people try to make me feel bad, but I was sneaking doing me some lay your body down to get that little $7,000 that I did, because the internet wasn't popping back then, couldn't go viral. And I decided to grab a pen. I'm in Los Angeles, California, and I hadn't made it to my turning point, but I wrote about what it would look like. I want you to focus your attention to the screen. Check this out. You know, when I left that church, my life had changed forever. I realized that moments quickly become memories. So it's important that you spend great moments with your loved ones because you just don't never know. Speaking of loved ones, I was getting picked up by one of my favorite but not so favorite uncles, Uncle G. I mean, he old school, drive a Cadillac, hat to the back, and he knock-kneed as hell, but he's still a good guy. He sometimes joke too quick, but the truth is, he's exactly what I needed during this time to bring me back to earth. He walks up and he says, you all right, son? I'm like, it's tough. He continues, I know it, but it's a part of life. He says, don't worry about a thing. He's in a better place. That's true. You know I'm crazy, right? I don't know why they say in a better place, he in a box. But you see, I got you laughing already. Laughter is healing for the soul. No matter what it is, laugh it off. Keep laughter in your life no matter what you do, okay? Now get your punk ass in the car.
What?
Get your ass in the car, Junior.
Wow.
See, a lot of people don't understand the game, you know what I'm saying? There's no stability in this, dog. All you living off of is a dream, you know what I'm saying? If people don't buy your music, you don't eat, man. So it do get hard for you sometimes, you heard me? I'm gonna tell you though, for real. Steady striving for stardom, wanting fortune and fame. On my face I'm smiling, in my heart is pain.
I believe we all get tested, go through hell to get our blessings.
I promise at times I wanna break down.
No one understands me.
This time I'm going up, ain't going back down.
If you believe it will be.
Taking proper precautions, times is getting harder. Do what we gotta do to feed our sons and daughters. You wanted a survivor, then you got your one. You just told me to claim it, and that's all I done.
Living in my city street, nobody cares for me.
Oh, oh.
Somebody pray for me, cause I got a destiny.
Oh, oh,
oh. I'm just a man with a dream, striving for the finer things.
oh, oh.
But this is my turning point.
I'm getting everything I want.
Brand new music.
Wow.
It's called Turning Point,
Let's
featuring
go.
Tank.
Let's go.
Make sure that you stream it wherever you get your music. James, I want to talk about
Man.
these turning points, bro.
Listen.
Did I do okay though, Champ?
Oh, that's amazing. That's incredible, man.
Can I get
Shout
a
out
feature
to
with
that.
Fire in them?
Anytime.
Okay.
Man. Wait,
You
said
heard it.
You said with fire, then what about me?
Yeah. James, I heard you singing on that last
A
album.
little
Just
bit. A little bit.
Honestly, you're probably one of the best producers and songwriters ever.
Oh, man.
Like,
Thank
to
you,
be
man.
honest. A
Wow,
lot of people
that's
don't
great.
know that you writing a lot of things that they singing right now. If James in there, like, they bring you in. James Fortune, a.k.a. the Pen Man. Like, it's coming out.
Wow.
And then I want to
Thank you,
talk to you a little bit today, man. As
Yeah.
I was thinking about the last 2 weeks, I was like, man, I would really want to talk to him because when I went through divorce, you gave me a book. And it just sat right on my table. It was like I couldn't put it in the other pile.
Yeah.
And I began to look like, wow, how does a person go from being this super amazing gospel star, and it's like you got to be perfect in this world because the moment that you go through scrutiny, people turn you away.
Yeah.
But I seen you rise from the ashes, right?
Yeah.
To go from going through divorce, people saying things, people putting dirt on your name, friends walking away, and then you came out seemingly victorious.
Yeah.
I want to go back to when you first started, 2003, and then you go through public scrutiny, but yet you still have to follow the call in your life.
Right.
Why didn't James give up when the world said that he should?
Yeah. Well, for me, it's crazy because this is the 20th year anniversary from when I started doing gospel music with the first album, You Survived.
Yeah.
And so to be sitting here now as a survivor after everything you've just spoken of, I'm going to be honest, it's the turning point for me was accountability. Because there was so many, when I went through, it was 10 years ago, it was 2014. When I went through that season of my life, man, it was just, I was trying to find every excuse, how to fix it, how to take control of it. God was like, listen, that's not how you're gonna survive this.
Yeah.
You're gonna survive this by being accountable, by taking responsibility, not blaming anybody else, not making excuses for it, by literally saying, listen, it's nobody else, I'm the problem, I'm the issue. Yeah. And that was the first step for me. And I began to go to therapy. It helped me discovered that, I had always been taught my life, hey, we just gonna pray about it. We just gonna pray it away. You gonna be good. Just say a prayer is good. But it taught me that you can have Jesus and a therapist. Like, I had never believed in therapy. I was all like, hey, you know what? That's for crazy people. But you can have the wonderful counselor and a licensed counselor at the same time.
I like that.
Yeah, like for me, that's really was a crucial part when I was able to say, and you talk a lot about the song "I Forgive Me." It came through therapy.
Hold on, let's just talk about this
you
real
was like,
quick.
man, this brother out here like on some arrogant stuff.
Hey,
I was like,
it was
nah,
real. James, that was a little arrogant for me, because the news tabloids is like, he did this to his wife.
Yeah.
He's divorced. And he's doing this. First single, "I Forgive Me." I was
forgive
like,
me, man.
this brother got King Kong kahunas.
No, but okay. You said, and
I forgive me.
I've never
I don't need
forgot
your
that.
forgiveness.
I'll never forget that, because this is what that therapist asked me. She said, have you forgiven yourself? And I said, I'm not really concerned about forgiving me. Like I'm looking, for my wife and my children, to forgive me. She said, no. She said, if you don't forgive yourself, you'll continue to have resentment toward yourself. You'll continue to hurt yourself, and the cycle will continue. She says, you have a controlling issue. You cannot control other people forgiving you, but you can control forgiving yourself. At the end of the day, trying to please people. See, I wasn't called to please people. I was called to serve people. And sometimes by serving people, it's being accountable, it's being responsible. And by having that responsibility and saying, you know what, I have to learn to forgive myself first. If I couldn't forgive me, I couldn't. Because see, the thing is, it's gonna always be somebody gonna hop on your page, this and that. You cannot control other people forgiving you when you make mistakes, or some things they may believe, don't believe. But you can control saying, you know what, I know if God has forgiven me, why shouldn't I forgive myself? Why should I walk around holding on to something that God has already forgiven me for?
James, is that easier said than done, though?
Nah,
when you are in this world
Yeah.
of Christianity, it's like, if you don't please the pastor, you don't get booked. If you don't please the congregation of people who doing music, they like, oh, who do he think he is? It's like it almost as if you have to walk this really thin line of almost walking in perfection and pleasing everybody.
Yeah.
So like, what is the process of you saying, listen, I'm not called to please everybody, I'm called to serve people, when you are prone to be that way in this culture? That's just the way they train you.
Yeah. And, well, you have to understand. So at the end of the day, I believe that when you serve God with excellence, when you do what you do with excellence, there's always going to be some people who are going to not like it. There's always going to be some people who are not going to be pleased with what you do. I'm called to who God has called me to. I remember when this happened, Willie, I was sitting down one day and I was like, God, I don't even care about the artist. It wasn't about the artist, Jane. It wasn't about none of it. It was about the Father. It was about my children. It was about, because I understand at the end of the day, I cannot please people. Like before that, I wasn't pleasing everybody. I was a Kurt Franklin wannabe. I've always had issues with people not liking it. Well, everybody not gonna like your song. Everybody, you don't know how hard it was for us to get the radio stations to play I Trust You. Like that was a hard process. Shout out to, it was like, man, it sounds too much like Kurt Franklin. It's a Kurt Franklin wannabe. So I'd already been through seasons of my life where it's like, okay, you've got to be okay with who God has called you to and serving people. If God is pleased, that's all you can control.
Yeah. So the question becomes, when you go through all of that and people saying certain things, does James Fortune, maybe not now, but did James Fortune have an anger problem?
Absolutely. It was a controlling problem more than an anger problem. That's what I had to learn. The anger was when I was out of control. When I didn't have control, it would make me out of control. So it was a controlling issue. A lot of times in abuse, it's not so much the anger, it's the control that you have to be in control. You have to control the situation. I've talked to you about it before about all the different forms of abuse. Only one of them is physical. You got the mental, financial, emotional abuse. There's so many other factors that play into it, and it's all about control. So then when I can't control you emotionally, or when I can't control you with my finances, or if I can't control you mentally, now I have to control you physically. So it's literally it's a process that begins with just verbal, and then it goes. So I think for me, it was understanding, listen, it's a controlling issue. The anger was coming only because I felt like I wasn't in control.
Did you ever go to the physical part? And if so, what triggered you to be that way?
Well, it wasn't so much the physical part. Now, of course, that particular night, and I don't want to get into what was in the media and what was true and what was not true.
Of course,
that was one of the things God really helped me with. He said, "Stop trying to just."
Oh no, I totally get that. I've never said nothing.
Right.
Yeah, so I don't want you to go there.
Right.
I'm just saying, just in an overarching thing.
Yeah.
Like, what were some of the triggers that could get you close to that point if that point did happen?
A lot of times it was fear. A lot of times it was me being afraid. It was me not understanding, how a situation, and I was doing an interview one time and they were just trying so hard with it just to find out like what made you go. And I was like, what triggered me didn't matter as much as it did is that I was the one that was responsible for whatever happened. It was like, well, it had to be because, you don't just, I was like, no, whatever happened, whatever the reason was, it doesn't really matter. I had some internal issues with control that I needed to work out. See, if you don't get control of it, it'll control you. And I think for me, it was just like, oh, it's about submission. Oh, it's just about, I'm the priest. Oh, it's about being the leader of the home. And it's like, no, it was more than that. It was more control. It was more, and like I said, I felt personally the anger would come when I didn't feel like I had that control of the marriage that I thought I should have. Even if it was in simple decisions. Now, most of it wasn't, obviously, it was mostly verbal, but that abuse, there's so many women, I've been to so many shelters, I've talked to so many women who've been through abuse, and most of them will tell you that the physical does not leave the longing impact that the verbal, mental, emotional abuse does. That they got over the physical, but because if you can change a person's perception of who they are, you change who they are. If you can make a woman feel like she's nothing because her perspective is who she is. So so I don't want to diminish and say, well, it wasn't really physical, it was mostly that's worse for a lot of women. Most women say, listen, that I'm still trying to heal from the emotional, the psychological abuse that I went through in relationships, and men as well.
No, that's real. Family, if you're just tuning in, make sure that you subscribe to this channel. And I want to shout out to my Patreon family. I love you to life. Many of you all are sending in questions, and I want to appreciate you publicly. So make sure that if you're watching this on YouTube, I know you traditionally don't do this, but I want you to go in the description, click the link on Patreon, and you can ask questions to our guests while we are doing this thing live. So shout out to all my Patreon members. It's a young lady. She's Christian Johnson. She represents Jacksonville, Florida. Okay. Shout out to Duval. Let's get that out the way. Duval. I told you I was gonna ask him. She said, James, how much of the songs that you write have personal? What she said is more like how much of those songs are actually personal. Yeah. So when it came to I Forgive Me, I Trust You, specifically I Trust You. Yeah. Like what was you going through those moments? Yeah,
I Trust You. It was crazy because in that season I was homeless. Like I was literally homeless with my family. Had went through just financial, just didn't have it, man. And I was too ashamed to tell my family, my father. Because I wanted to be the man. And it was just embarrassing. And I think for me, I was in a motel room one night. Me and my whole family was in a motel room. My wife, my kids, and I was just sitting there like, God, how am I serving you? How am I being faithful? Because at the time I wasn't being paid, but I was volunteering. I was doing ministry. And so he was like, James, if you can trust me in this season of your life, I'm getting ready to do something that you wouldn't even believe if I told you. And I began to write the words of that song, even though I can't see you and I can't feel your touch. God, I trust you. God, I love you. And that's when the song came. And so I was homeless for 7 months, Willie. 7 months we were homeless. That song I wrote in that season, in that motel room, went #1 for 29 consecutive weeks, which is still the record for the most weeks in a row for #1 gospel song. That's 7 months. It was just crazy because it's like God just showed me that what the enemy meant for evil, that you were homeless for 7 months, but I took a song, made it #1 for 7 months, that to this day, 15, 16 years later, is still touching lives and still been a blessing to me and my family, and my children's children will be blessed by it as well.
Come on. 7 months, 7 being the number of completion. During those 7 months, were you married with children during that time?
Yes, me and my first wife, my ex-wife, we were married at that time and had 3 children.
Yeah. So why is it that a lot of women say that it's always the woman who stick by him when he on the ground and he ain't got nothing and I stuck by him, and then as soon as they get it, they become disposable? Was that the case with you?
No, not at all, man. Like I think, man, so you got to think, we worked together, like she helped me build, from the ground up. Like literally, like and I'll never take that away from her. So it was never me, not wanting my marriage. I just didn't know how to. I didn't know how to be the man I needed to be in that season. I think with success, a lot of times we talk about the wins, but we don't talk about what you lose when you win. It's like
that's so real.
Yeah, it's like we never take account the losses that we like. Yes, you got the success. Yes, you got the #1s, but what did it cost your marriage? What did it cost your family? Like, and I think at the end of the day, some of that gets sacrificed when we don't know how to manage it, when we don't manage it well. And I can say that I wasn't a good manager of that. Like, and I wasn't. I failed in that area, and I got to a point to where it was like, well, I'm grinding so hard trying to provide for my family and make sure my family's good and my wife is good and my kids are good, that I wasn't really maintaining and managing my home the way that I needed to. And then in those moments when I would try to, okay, now you want to be in control, it's like, nah, like, and it just, it just became just too much.
I can admit to that too. Like I enabled a lot of the behavior that I despised. Like a lot of times, like I'm like water. Like if I ask you to do something and I keep on asking and I'm trying, I'll just water. I will work around you and keep on going. And for real, that's really a low functioning guy. Because I should be accountable for the woman in which God made me the head of the household over. But I would just work around. So when I first started making just a little bit of money, making some influence, doing what I'm supposed to do, finally get a job. I've never had a job. And they give me a syndicated radio job. HR calls me, it's like, Willie, how many days do you think you want in this contract? And they work? And I'm like, hell, I've never had a job. 40 days, 40 nights. Jesus, ain't that what Jesus did? 40 days, 40 nights. And I remember she was like, I don't know if we can do all that, but I just never had it. And what my biggest problem in my first marriage was that, and notice I said first because I believe God's gonna bless me with a wife, right? And so my biggest problem is that I never got an opportunity to tell her how afraid I was of going back to poverty.
Yeah, that's it.
Like I was so afraid, like I was running from poverty. Even now, even as I speak to you right now, I still, even though blessed and have some residual income from coming from different places, I still work like it's zero. And my biggest problem is that I was becoming a champion for grinding. Like a champion, like, look, he can work 16 hours, he work harder than ever, but nobody's seen that this woman who was standing next to my side never felt value. I wasn't doing no date nights. I was living under the false pretense of just because the light's on and you don't have to worry about nothing. Every time you swipe your card, it goes through because I got this hood mentality, but God called me the priest of the home. And a priest is very, very, very attentive to the people that he's working with, and I was not that person. And it really, like, I will take full responsibility of not showing up as the man that God had called me to be because I was focused on trying to make sure that we never went back to foreclosure.
And that was me. You got to think. So I was like, I think I was 22 when we got married. So, I mean, I was young. We had never, me and her didn't go to college. We had only kind of done ministry. She comes from her parents are pastors. My parents was pastors. All we had kind of knew was ministry. So to get this success and feel this, it was like, I get it. Like I don't want to go back to that little apartment with the rat. We setting out rat traps. Like that's how me and her was rolling before I tried. It was the rat traps and all that. So it was like I'm grinding. I'm thinking I'm doing my part. But it was so much I was losing. I'm thinking because she was singing and traveling with me, like, oh, well, we good. We don't have date nights. We traveling. We going to DC to sing this weekend. Like, that's
a trip.
Yeah, that's a trip. But
we ate afterwards.
Right. I'm doing meet and greets and interviews. And at the end of the day, it's like, no, I wasn't doing my responsibility, like you say, as the priest of the home. I was providing, but I wasn't covering. I wasn't praying. I wasn't making sure everybody was good.
Let's talk a little bit, because you said you two both came from families where there were pastors as fathers in the home. What was that like for you? And because for some people, they resent church because their father was devoted to the church and not necessarily devoted to the home. You ended up taking the same path, although not a pastor. I always tell people, if he speak, you might not want to hear him do the sing thing because he got some nuggets. But if you hear him doing the sing thing of what he does, then you might not want to hear him preach because that's good. Like, what was it like growing up in a home with a pastor father?
I'm gonna say, so I was raised by my father. My parents got divorced when I was six or seven. And my mom, she was always in my life, but we had a lot of family in California. So she moved to California. I stayed in Houston, Texas. So my dad raised me and my sister. We lived with him, and he was always an amazing father. Like, that's one thing I'm gonna say. My dad, like, that's why a lot of people see me with my kids. They're like, man, you so intentional about your kids, because I mean, that's how my dad was with me. So he always balanced that well. And of course, I always had to be at church all the time. I always share that growing up, I had a bad drug problem. It was bad. I don't know if you ever heard. I had a bad drug problem when I was a kid. Like, it was bad.
What is it?
Like, every day my dad drugged me to church. Like, I like,
every day.
It was like, for women's meeting, men's meeting. But at the end of the day, it was really preparation for how God was gonna use me later. And I didn't know it then. I just wanted to play sports, play video games. But I had a good example. I had a great example of a father. And my dad, as far as a husband, I don't really remember him and my mom that much, but I do know, as far as my stepmom, I had a great example as a husband, for him to be a husband as well. So I can't even make the excuse that I didn't have that example, because I did.
When I look back at my life, being adopted, never meeting anybody in my biological family until 2020, always wanting to know my biological mother, I was like, God, is that the reason why I couldn't fully give myself to a woman? I often question myself, like, what was it like as a child to come out of the womb, not get physical touch from your mom,
Yeah.
being casted off into where Lord knows where, going on to foster care, not having that touch.
Yeah.
Is that the reason why I can't really build a bridge with people and I have these blockers?
Mm-hmm.
Does James Fortune believe that because after the divorce, instead of mom being there for PTA, where traditionally when you go to school, you see mama and daddy together, or if daddy ain't there, it's usually a mama there. That's just traditionally how it is in African-American homes as well as Caucasian homes, to be quite honest. But when you come, you do have your dad, but the mother's touch isn't really there.
Well,
Do you think that's why you held on so hard and tried to control it so much, because you didn't get an opportunity to control it when you were 6 or 7?
Yeah, no, that was absolutely true. I mean, I think I was always like, no, you're not gonna leave me like my mom did. You know, like you're not gonna, I have to control. You're not gonna do what she did, even though, at the time, I'm matured now, and I don't really, blame just anybody for it.
Of course,
because my mom was 17 when she got pregnant with me.
Yeah.
She was laying on an abortion table.
My mama too.
And the ladies, like, the nurse was like, because my dad was a pastor. So it was like, we was trying to cover it up or whatever. And the lady was like, you don't look like you want to do this. And my mom was like crying. She's like, I don't, and she was like, come on, and called. And my dad came, picked her up and everything. And they got married after. But she was a teenager. So I don't judge her. But at the end of the day, I understand that was an issue for me. Even though I could call her, because she wasn't around as much, it was like, nah, you're not going to do me that way. Like, relationships, I always had controlling issues in until I got the help that I needed. I always want to try to control it. I was like, nope, you're not going to do that. And I didn't even realize until I started going through therapy. I didn't know why I was like that until I started digging deep until when did I start seeing certain things that happened in my life.
Well, I tell you what, whether your mama was there or not, she had a peaceful life because she's still fine. Come on, so I mean no disrespect. But I seen mom in Houston. She was like, hi, how you doing? I'm James Fortune's mom. I said, impossible.
Yeah.
But you still look like your
That's my
sister
mama.
or something.
Yeah, she's
and it's so
incredible.
good that you guys are able to reconcile and kind of build that bridge, because you show so much honor to her.
Yeah.
And I can see the honor that you have, and you gleam when you see her.
Right,
And she's there with the children or what have you. Do you think she's a better grandmama than a mother?
Yeah, I mean, like I say, she was a great mom. I just gotta put it out there. We're gonna put it out there. Like, she ran away from who I became. Wow. And I've never wanted to speak negatively on, my dad or my parents, period. But her leaving wasn't because she didn't want us. She literally ran away from the man that I ended up becoming. As far as running from abuse, as a very, very, you got to think by the time she was like about 21, she's a first lady. My dad was 31, he was 10 years older than her. So it was just a lot that was going on, a lot that I had to deal with and my sister had to deal with. It was even harder for her. She's raised by her dad, so it was just, it always can seem like it's so simple, but it's always so many, like you said earlier, so many layers to it, to why situations end up the way they were. Not to make any excuses, because at the end of the day, it's not a mistake. It's a decision. I made certain decisions in my life that didn't just cost me. I can deal with it costing me, but it's when it costs your children, when it costs those closest to you, those who you're responsible for being the priest and covering and making sure that they're safe. And when you fell in that area, it's easy to go grab and blame somebody else. Yeah. But when you blame people, Willie, this is the thing. Lessons learned are blessings earned. So it's like when you stop blaming people, then you can extract the lesson from that. It's like you get your power back. Like, blaming people doesn't change anything. Okay. When you say, you know what, I understand my role, my responsibility, because even though the hurt, whatever, wasn't my fault, the healing is my responsibility. And I had to just look at it like that and say, listen, because the first time I got in therapy, I started trying to dig up, well, what'd your dad do? What'd your mom do? And it was like, for me, it just felt like that was a cop-out. But then as I got better educated in that area, it's like, okay, I had to understand that to even know how to fix myself.
Yeah. How does James Fortune continue to praise a loving God when so many different things have happened in your life? And I know there's been times, really, I really need to speak to the person right now, being honest. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. Who feels like, and you go to church and you say God is good, and then and they say all the time, and you know the jargon, and you know that God is good. But how do you feel when shit just ain't good for you, bro? How do you have a loving God? My parents get divorced. My mom go this way. He's this way. And then I'm trying to build a family like God. Like, where are you?
Yeah.
Like, how do you maintain saluting and celebrating a God that sometimes you literally on the inside, if we can be honest, have a strong vendetta against. Like, I know you God right now, but we ain't cool right now. You know what I mean? So how did you get through those moments?
I'm gonna be honest. That's where a lot of the songs came from. literally, I was in a hotel in Atlanta, Georgia, and I was complaining to God. I was like, God, this just ain't right. Like, man, how you love me? You sovereign, so you controlling this situation. You're allowing this to happen. You know, and he was like, James, you're gonna have to live through this one. Like, and that's where the song Live Through It came from. That's literally what he was like, you gotta live. They say this one ain't just gonna listen, if you can't make the storm go away, make it go to work. And that's been my process. That's been my thought process.
Stop.
If you can't make it go,
you hit too many nuggets. I'm gonna tell you like TD told me. You gotta let it breathe. Say that one more time.
Yeah, if you can't make the storm go away, make it go to work. I've decided no more freeloading storms in my life. If it's gonna be a storm in my life, I'm going to I'm gonna get some blessings out of the storm. And I think we get peace, we get understanding, our faith is strengthened. We get endurance because we have to understand, listen, there's some storms, they just gonna happen, Willie. I understand we can pray, we can fast, but some storms in our life, we cannot make them go away, but you can make them go to work. It can work for your good. And I think that's what I had to understand.
Somebody just in the chat right now say, my storms are going to work. Put that in the chat. If you're driving right now, you're listening to this audibly, just declare that over your life right now. Just say, my storms are going to go to work, right? We do not want these storms to overtake you. Hashtag James Fortune in the comments if you want. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. James, I gotta, I gotta go here because sometimes trauma, public scrutiny, and all of that, it shows you who your real people are.
Oh, man.
And I remember when I first got on radio, and shout out to my producer, Ahmed, I love you to life.
Oh, yeah.
He was like, well, I want to bring James on and this, that, and other. Like, what you think? And I was just like, I don't think I ever told you this, but there was a time at Praise in the Park, and everybody was moving, and you had Chauncey next to you. Everybody was moving. They was moving you out and this, and this, and you was just about to leave, and I was like, hey, bro, I really love what you do. And you were rushing, but you paused. And you was like, oh, no, it's all good, bro. Seeing the little videos you doing, bro. Just keep doing this, and this. And I never forgot that. Because I was trying to take care of my family. I was living in a 700 square foot apartment. My son was sleeping on the air mattress. So I was listening to I Trust You, damn near in the same situation you was in. And I remembered that, and I recalled it. And I was like, this is probably the lowest point in his life. It's like he's going to remember those people who gonna say, hey man, I might feel a certain type of way, but I realize what you did is not who you are. And so I wanna make sure that you're good and you came in. But what was it like to be celebrated by so many people and everybody like calling and man, I got you, and you're getting the invitations, and the moment that you hit turmoil and some unique times, people walk away. How did James deal with that?
I lost, everything instantly. It was, it happened so fast, man. Like, it was literally, I remember I was at the radio station. So when I went in October 23rd, 2014, they came, they picked me up 4 a.m. I was like, what's going on? I was like half asleep, kids was in the bed with me. And then I got, bailed out or whatever. And I remember I came to the radio station because I was like, okay, I don't know, like, if this going, I wasn't there 30 minutes, and it was like news, boom, boom, everything started hitting, calls started coming, everything got canceled. And so it was when I say it was a dark place that I literally didn't feel like I had any reason to live, because I was restricted from seeing my kids. So I had to see them supervised. Of course, I couldn't see my wife.
What stopped you from suicide?
I don't want to sound deep, but it was the grace of God, man. Like I literally didn't see any light at the end of the tunnel. Like there was no, in my opinion, there was no coming back from that. Regardless to, because at the time, me and my ex-wife, we were still like trying to talk. We were trying to figure it out. Like, you guys know, she's talking to Danita, and may she rest in peace. Like, we talking to, radio station. We trying to figure it all out because we understood what happened. Something happened, but we were still trying to hold it together for our family. But then when we were restricted from even talking to each other, the kids, all that, it was like, man, I'm by myself. Like, that's who mattered most to me in the whole world was my wife and my kids.
Who showed up for you the most?
Man, it's crazy. A lot of the people that I had neglected the most when I was successful. A lot of my family that I didn't have time for. That God brought me back to the one. It was like a lot of the people that didn't return calls, didn't return text messages because I got caught up in the hype, got caught up in the celebrity. But at the end of the day, it was my family was there. You know, cousins, aunts, uncles. You know that I hadn't spoken to in years. Wow. That surrounded me. Pastor Jamal Bryant was a blessing to my life. I gotta shout him out. Yeah. He was one of the pastors, one of the few pastors, because a lot of pastors obviously canceled on me. No judgment toward them. I understand, but
judgment from me, pastors. Just a little judgment, because I feel like when somebody's going through something, we should not kill our wounded. We are the first to kill our wounded. I just got on Fox the other day and they were talking about a pastor who had a sexual scandal or whatever. And I was like, where the hell was all the people who was holding him up when he was up? But why don't we hold each other when he does? Because the Bible says when you weak, he's made strong. And if we're supposed to be like him, then when they're weak, we should be strong and come to the rescue. But that's another story. Continue, James. I'm sorry. Judgment on my end.
But like I say, Pastor, I got to shout out Pastor Jamal Bryant because he was really there, man, walking me through and just it was just like, man, he literally was like, the day you get out of jail, I want to be there with you. I want to be there when you get out, you know? And so very few were like that. And I guess for me, I understood me not wanting them on their platform. I get that. I didn't need to be on anybody's platform at that time. I needed to work on me. But I could have used some of the same prayer they had asked me to pray when they was going through some of these situations and some of these divorces and some of these scandals, you know? But it's just, you know, it's just how it always works. So still no judgment there because I don't want to be judged.
But judgment for me, and I don't want to be judged. Opinion then, because he put the word on it. Opinion from me, not a judgment. You could have did better.
Yeah. So, but yeah, those were some people that was there for me during that time. But it was tough, man. I remember one of the toughest times for me was on the radio with you because you didn't know all the facts. You didn't really know what was true, what wasn't true. But when you shared with me what happened to your sister, and I'm sitting there like, man, I can't believe this brother got me on the radio when he lost his sister to domestic violence. Yep. Like that brought tears. I mean, the interview probably still up somewhere. That brought tears in my eyes because here I am, out of everybody you could have had on, like for you to allow me to come on, knowing that you're like, I can't even say if I could have done that same thing for you. I don't know. I would pray to God that I would, but I always honor you for that, bro. I never forgot that because I didn't know at the time. I didn't even know when I was coming up there. Yeah. But when you shared that with me, I was like, this a different kind of brother to still allow me to not get on the radio and make excuses, but to take accountability for my actions and to still love me through that, man. I've never forgotten that. And you helped me love myself because I'm like, okay, now if this brother can forgive me and what he's had to deal with, man, I got to be able to forgive myself and love myself more.
Yeah, Latasha Hassel, man. That was family friend. We grew up together. I was adopted. Of course, I had no biological brothers and sisters, but that was the girl in the neighborhood that everybody knew, Tasha and Willie. Yeah. Like, you know, and what I had to do in that moment, I realized that was a trigger for me. And I was like, well, you know, this happened and this, that, and another, and it's this tug of war. And to those of you who are watching, it's always going to be a tug of war in the test and the biggest wound that you have. It's almost like salt being put on the wound. But the way to beat the enemy at his own game is to confuse him.
Wow. Yeah.
And I know I could confuse him, that he couldn't torment me. James ain't Bo. Bo ain't James. Yeah. And you know, and as I went through therapy about it, I was like, they were both extremely violent. She was verbally abusive and he was verbally abusive, and that he could have very well been in the grave and she could have been in the jail or vice versa. So I gave that part to God. So when I seen you, I was like, this is an amazing opportunity for me to confuse the enemy in hopes that you can build a bridge. And here it is. It becomes reciprocated. When I go through divorce and this little niche of a culture that we have begin to say different things about me and I don't get a chance to say nothing, I got an opportunity to follow your blueprint. I can still show up smiling. I knew, I was like, it was like WWJD for real. What would James do? So you go to this mucky muck school and everybody knows and you got to walk in and everybody know your face and these voices and like, everybody knows. You just want to run. You just want to get away. You just want to say, but can I just tell you the truth? And the Holy Spirit's like, I'm your vindicator.
Yeah.
I'm going to show them for you.
Yes.
You don't have to be the person to go ahead and plead your case.
Man.
I am the judge and the jury, and you're going to reign victorious. I'm going to set a table for you in the presence of those same enemies. I'm going to make sure that you have a choice for who sits at this table.
Yes.
And then I want you to be able to give grace and mercy because that's been following you all the days of your life.
You know, it's Willie, when you say that, man, it reminds me of, you know, I remember I was like, God, let me be the evidence. It wasn't so much let me be the evidence of, you know, stellar awards. It was like, let me show that no matter what you go through, no matter how low you get knocked down, that God, your grace is still sufficient. Yeah. That you're still a God who restores. That there's no new information on us that makes you change your mind about us. You knew us before we were in our mother's womb. And I was like, I had to, because for me, man, I did not feel comfortable in churches because you got to think that's like they know, in my mind, everybody know. Even if they don't all know. But it's like everybody look is like, knows. Everybody knows. So it wasn't even about ministering in church. I didn't even want to go to church. Because it was just, I was like, that feeling of, because I remember I met with Bishop Jakes right after. Me and my ex-wife, we met with Bishop Jakes like right after it happened.
You and who?
Me and my ex-wife.
Okay, yeah,
right
okay, cool.
We weren't even supposed to be around each other, but I'm past all that now. I'm good. I'm off probation and everything. Right. I can talk about it. I can talk about it.
Statute of limitations.
So we went to, we stays up. So we went and met with Bishop Jakes and Sarita Jakes, and man, Bishop Jakes said something to me. And he was honest, man. He was brutally honest because 2 weeks before this happened, I had just ministered, at Woman Thou Lose in Atlanta. It was amazing. It was crazy. And 2 weeks later, I'm on the couch, fresh out of jail. And he's like,
did anybody recognize you in jail?
Oh yeah. Hey,
that's the gospel dude right there. What's up, man? Listen to your song.
That's how I got out, from the beginning. That was So that was.
All right, go ahead. I'm sorry.
But I ended up praying. We can go there. I ended up praying with some people, man. Like it was a revival in there. I'm gonna say I did a hard time. I did 3 days, man. I did a 3-day revival. Like it was good. Yeah. But when I got
with TD Jakes.
Yeah, so I got with him and he was like, James, the problem you're gonna have is that I can't remember the statistic, but it was a high number. I don't know, 80 or whatever have dealt with some form of domestic violence, and the church is made up of certain. He said, "I'm gonna just give you the rules. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it for you." He said, "That's what you have to overcome." He said that it's mostly women in church, and also more than have not women have been. Have suffered through some form of abuse. Yeah. Whether it was a father, a relationship, whatever it was. But he was real honest, and so he was like but he walked me through it. And Jakes was a blessing to my life, and that's why I said I wanted to shout him out as well. But it wasn't many people I could go to, man. It was a very, very, very painful time in my life, and to see how God took that, Willie. When I tell you to now see where my life is, I would have never saw this, never. Like it's literally the grace and mercy of God. So why I'm able to do what I do. I'm married again, family, blessed. And it's amazing. Looking back now, 10 years ago when it happened, I would not think I would be sitting here right now with you.
So last 3 minutes, of course, I got to put a bow on this thing, but I do have to ask you this. Going through what you go through, have gone through, and then being able to find love a second time. Yeah. Was that an easy feat? And what attributes did she have to make you feel comfortable enough to be vulnerable again?
Yeah. Well, first of all, the therapist, she was like, don't get in any relationships no time soon. So at first she was like, I know you were 22 and you did the first time, so a lot of immaturity there. She was like, just work on you. So I dealt with a lot of me first. So my wife got a much better version of James Fortune than I was before. But it was the way she just made me feel. She made me realize that I deserved to be loved again. Like she made me realize that like out of everybody who may have counted me out and wrote me out, she was a safe place for me. Like without the cameras, without the lights, without the studio, any of that, it was just, I felt peace. I felt loved. I felt wanted. I felt desired. Like I dealt with so much rejection. Mm-hmm. I dealt with so much rejection really it got to the point to where I couldn't even get excited about a call no more. Because I knew within 24 hours, we just heard about, so we're gonna have to cancel that. Like that was, even when I felt like I was past it, it's like my past just kept following me. It was like opportunities, doors would come open and it would just get shut. So I was like, my wife would be like, man, why are you not excited? I'd be like, because I don't really know if I got the call, but either they gonna Google or something gonna pop up and they gonna. So for her to be that place for me where I just didn't feel no rejection, no judgment, no, yeah, I heard about what you did. It was just, she just loved me, and she loved me through that season of my life.
That's so good. James Fortune, ladies and gentlemen, let's show some love to him real quick. Let's do it. Put them claps in there.
Man.
All right, so as I look at this camera, I want to tell you, listen, no matter where you are, you don't have to be there, right? God loves you enough to see where you are, accept you where you are, but he also loves you enough not to keep you where you are. What you understand through this conversation is that life has its ebbs and flows. I often tell you that we're no longer living on a changing landscape. We're on a changing seascape, which means it's moving a whole lot faster. But I want to challenge you not to outrun the pace of grace. If there's some things that you need to do right now, hey, baby, you might need to hit some therapy. You might need some accountability partners. It's this funny joke that I often tell people when I first got into the gospel music industry. Now, in this industry, if I can be real, it's a lot of people who are same-sex loving people. Right? I'm just gonna keep it real with you. And so for me, that is not my preference, no knock to anybody else at all. Okay, that's just who you are, whatever you doing, that's between you and God. I just know if God made anything better than a woman, he kept it for himself. Okay, and that was an issue for me. That was one of the issues when I came in. So every single time I went on the road, my boy Chuck would be in the room with me. And I remember my booking agent would be like, well, they gonna think something. I don't care. I said, baby, I don't care what they think. I just understand that when my brain goes numb and I can't control myself, I need some accountability. What am I telling you? You can be filled with the Holy Spirit, know God, but when you get into a vulnerable state, you may run into your emotional, controlling self and run back to habits that may not serve you the way God wants them to serve you. So my challenge to you today is to make a full assessment of yourself and have the ability to self-assess. Put that in the comments. Self-assess. What does that mean? To not be able to always look at what everybody else is doing and take a look at yourself and say, listen, these are the things that I am going to get better. Through every argument that you go through, when that person is telling you who you are and what you should be doing, don't take offense to it so quick. You got to say, what part of this is true? What part of this could use some adjusting? What I seen today is a man who decided to adjust, and God decided to bless him abundantly, even after all the things that he went through. And because God is no respecter person, I believe he can also do it for you. If you believe it, put a number 1 in the chat. All right, family, I want to encourage you to subscribe to this channel. And once again, traditionally, I know you don't look at the description, although I work hard with ChatGPT, little help. Come on, somebody, to put that cool description on there. But there's also a link for you to become a part of our Patreon community. If you want to ask questions to our upcoming guests, to be a part of the opportunity, become a part of the Patreon. And of course, going into this year, depending on when you see this, I'm saying this year, we're going to be on the road. And so I'm going to give you some exclusive deals on how to get tickets, merch, and maybe hang out with me. And I promise to wear one of my cute little onesies, okay? All right? Family, make sure that you never forget that the Bible declares that we are to love our neighbor as we love ourselves. And that's why it's important for you to love yourself more. Flat out.
Love you more, love you more.